Hello and welcome to Sim Strategy Gaming. I'm Sim. This episode will be about the 11th scenario of Railway Empire 2 across the Alps. Lots of interesting terrain to traverse in this hard level where it might not be straightforward using a circular approach due to the gigantic mountain range in the middle of the map. So, we will have to pay extra attention to supply and demand in order to grow the cities so we can make some serious money even here. Looking at the mission objectives, we see that first of all we will have to create an express status on a rail between Nice and Turin, and then also grow our home region. That will be very important throughout the game because we're going to need much money coming in to build bridges and tunnels and everything else. And then produce some clothing. We see that we find ourselves very late in the game. This is a huge advantage. We now have access to all these fantastic technologies from way back then. Might be a really good idea to go back here and see that you gotten all of the goodies. There is one here way back somewhere called company values. Let's see. Yeah, company news. This one is accessible and costs 200. Take this. This is my good advice. It allows you to increase the amount of bonds just a little bit, and that will give you more seed money, which will come on very handy. Later on, there will be all of these other nice little texts, these cheap ones that one can buy, which I would very much recommend. We have access to super fantastic trains. Best one might be so far the Flying Scotsman. Very, very nice. High attractive power, but even though at this stage one can have even higher attractive power, over 200%, is accessible to some of these trains. Pointing out that the Mountain and the Santa Fe has about the same attractive power, and Santa Fe being superior, so Santa Fe will be the superior freight train here. One can use the Flying Scotsman, but then the Super Hudson is even much better. Sort of combining both the power of a mixed train or a good freight train actually with very high speed, not as quite as high as the Flying Scotsman, but still, in order to achieve the line between Nice here and Turin, it might be smart to set up these extra little lines. You just go straight from one station to another, and then make absolutely certain that it achieves the express status in order to achieve the mission objectives. Really look at the mission objectives and see that you are actually achieving them. Even though one has built a good solution, there might be difficulties with it. Have a really proper look into that and make sure that you are achieving them as soon as possible. Have all these nice connection bonuses, so it's very important to connect to all of them. There is no place really to build a good circle. Here can build something around these two mountains and such, but I'm not so sure about it. Might be, but then to have a sort of a cross here, and also to make these two go together, make for two very nice hotels. Build a hotel here later and a hotel here later. This one was already built, and then there will be lots of passengers coming back and forth here, and to have now use hotels a lot on these levels where circles might not be so easy to make. And then also one can put up a warehouse there later on. Haven't built any warehouses because we need to build as much rails, lay as much rails as possible in the beginning. But then to have and later here to add on a warehouse, and then this single line here will bring in the wheat not only to Lyon, but to all the rest of the system. And then Lyon will take some time for it to fulfill its demand for wheat. It has a lot of need for wheat, and it's also producing beer and such. So then it will take some time, and we don't need the warehouse there right away. We wouldn't actually need this station here either, because there already is a wool resource here in the main line, and that the wool resource can supply both of these factories. If that wool resource is recognizing that it's having an enormous amount of demand from two different factories, then it will bump up much faster and soon be able to supply them both. But then in the beginning and such, it might be smart to have this train here going back and forth a bit, and then just to fill up the demand, and then later on, as demand gets fulfilled, then one can delete the system and build something else instead.
Ah, Venice. Another milestone in our development of the Alps. A small step for us, a giant leap for our investors. Congratulations. We are well on our way to making our clients very happy. We now have a big section of the Alps linked by rail. The connected cities benefit from our network and are growing like crazy. We should now turn to our final stage.
So then, looking at the mission objectives, we see that we have come quite some ahead. Almost 2 years into the game. Took some time in the beginning to get the systems rolling and making money, but now we can see that we're making over $1 million a week, and this is very nice. This is much due to our late tech, and that we are late in the game. It's much easier to make money then. But still, we have been able to make good systems out of these mountainous regions. And then now we have to concentrate on Switzerland, and to build up Geneva, and then to build a rail line between Ulm and Moritz. That was a little awkward, I thought, that line. It didn't really fit with my system, so I built it and then deleted it. That's an okay thing to do, I think. One doesn't necessarily have to have these express statuses during all of the game, and that might really, sometimes your investors, they have these demands that sort of is not really aligned to your own needs and what you are thinking. So then one can just quickly achieve the mission objectives and then go back to your strategy. That's more or less okay. Try to include their wishes into my strategies, but sometimes it's not so easy to please everybody all the time. And then the dairy products that comes along with growing Geneva and the rest of Switzerland, Zurich. And then these passengers without changing train, and that is super important during this mission, that I have to check these lines that are supposed to bring the passengers from one place to another and see that they are direct, that nobody is allowed to change any trains along there. And later on we will further on grow the entire region, and then also this last super hard mission, I think, at least what I struggled with, Vienna, Marseille. And some other optional tasks here we'll come back to later. Looking at the budget, since we are now growing very well, more or less, we have at least in the latest quarter been able to grow quite a bit, and some interest rates here and such. But looking at the interest rate now, we can see that the interest rate is only little over 200,000, but that interest, the money we have borrowed, that's more than the track. We have 9 million bonds, and then all the expenses from last quarter is less than 10 million. So that means that we are laying 2 steps ahead, and then 2 steps back we were only making 6 millions, and now we're making 11 millions. So we actually made 11 millions, more or less, or at least 5 million more. We are 5 million ahead because of that loan, which only cost us 200,000. So loaning is a really, I think, a good strategy. But then do spend the money wisely. Do spend it on something that brings in revenue fast, like connecting new cities and growing them. In order to make all these monies and such, it was super important for us to properly grow our home region. There are concessions on this map, so that every new step we have to buy up. Now we already bought these concessions, but then also with all the difficult terrain and such, one might not make that much money on new connections, because it might be hard to connect it all, like say here and such. There have been a proper circle going around the Alps here, or from Turin to Geneva. Can build that later. Then we would have more connections. Now it's so hard to utilize the connection because of this extra long path here and such, but still, at least, it would be important to have this Rux Hotel here with 8 full lanes, looking at the beautiful mountains and such, and see that we have doubled up this, so there will be 2 tracks going back and forth, just using mixed trains and using that Super Hudson for all purposes. I'm building this new circular region here. Here's sort of the first place that one reaches, the Switzerland, North France, South France region, and to make this into a proper circle here and to have good revenue coming in from that. Important then to notice that Dion has to be separated into two stations, because this station, the eastbound, is also connected to these resources, and I don't necessarily want all of these resources going into this line. Say with wheat, for example, I already have wheat down both here and also hold them down the way down south. This would create for a mess if I know where to put wheat on here. One can see that this becomes these messy lines going back and forth, where the wheat from the western line is supplying the cities in the eastern circular region, which should definitely be avoided. These, and even all the way down here and such, this would make for a horrible mess. This will make for these warehouses to crash. But still, there are other ways that the warehouses can crash. If you now look at the Milky Route there, I think I'm already experiencing some problems. Yes, see here, warning triangle. There is no particular reason. I haven't done anything wrong with other warehouses and such. And it should be, say, having milk coming up to Dion from here and also down to, say, with Nis, for example, going through these warehouses. But this later warehouse is pretty much never being filled because there is too little traffic here. And then 4 lanes is way too little when it's only when this is the only path across the Alps there, and it might help on a bit when we complete this, but then that will take some time. And as so far, there is an enormous amount of traffic through Lyon. You can see the trains are red here immediately. One thing, another interesting thing, in Geneva I had to build this enormously long back and forth. I wanted 4 lanes, and I still wanted Geneva plates this vertical direction. But then, with these lines and such, this line, always go and check here on the waiting time, it says 5% waiting time. And the inner more here, 8%. So what is going on, really? One can have a look at all of this. 3, that's okay. 8, that's not so. 5, that's too much. And that's because we are the ones in the outer rim. They have a much harder time getting through this. They have to go all the way there, and then they have to crisscross back there. So then these in the outer rim, there should be a lower amount of trains, while in the inner rim, there can be a higher amount, because they go back and forth, and they can also utilize all of the stations there. But looking at this now, this is working sort of okay, but sometimes there might, depending on how they use these grids. This train pretty much goes going straight forward, no problem, so that this train can follow behind. But if there are long trains, a lot of wagons, and then crossing back and forth, that would create for delays. Also made this after we sort of deleted the St. Maurice-Ulm route, which was going over here just for a short little time, just one train, one track. Then I made for this line going from St. Moritz, Zurich, and then over to Geneva and Zermatt here and such. And then if it goes to Zurich and such, I'll be absolutely certain that all the cheese is going somewhere being exported. And then Ulm here could rather be connected through this just latching on to the circle through a warehouse here, which makes for a very nice little extra profit and such. And then not everything has to be part of a circle, but it's really nice to have a circle somewhere in the middle, and then rather connect two lines to it. Or if one cannot make a proper circle, one can make at least for a cross here. And so, only 4 months later, in April 25, we have made for a lot of these mission objectives, made this passenger line now from Vienna to Marseille, pretty much put everything up into place. But we will look at some problems that we have on the way. But say with the passenger line from Venice to Geneva, and then also from yes, we looked at the St. Maurice there, but from Venice up here, and then to go all the way around here and such. I changed this as well as I become more. I think I saw that we can build a circle here around this part of the mountains and such. Is easier than to build around this greater part, and then to have Trent and Caputo in the middle. Of course, have a hotel here. Might even have a warehouse if that is needed. But to have this great, nice extra circle around here, sort of, then to have two of these. And still we have to focus on building this line
Can't
from
imagine how relieved I am to be able to check off this goal.
Vienna, Graz, Trieste, Venice, all the way over here and such, and make absolutely certain that all of these passengers are actually on a direct route. You can see now how these passengers now going to Marseille, going to Duc. So this is where I sort of lost money. I lost points because I didn't really make absolutely certain that all of these it has all the stops on the way. Say, of course, to make the most amount of money. But now I have to delete a lot of these stops, and we will look at this later. In order to make it so that it's not going via anywhere. Have a little look at this, that I had to make for this line here also one of the optional tasks to establish a connection from Venice to Graz that is shorter than 310. And then the shortest direction from Venice to Graz will go directly over here, but that doesn't include any resources, and it leaves Trieste outside. So then if one had the money, one can build an enormous bridge here, completely straight, and then up here and further on, and that would make for exactly, I think, the right amount. I made for a couple of kilometers too short, and then I had to move around a little bit. But I placed this station in between. And this is not a really hotel station. This is one of those stations that doesn't truly serve a proper... It doesn't pick up any goods of its own here, but it has a maintenance depot, and it has a warehouse. And then now I move both of these resources here up to this place, a shorter stretch now, and then one can make for this line that go very directly from Venice to Graz, while also is including all the resources that is left out a little bit further on. And then say I had to build this line up to Vienna further on, and then here sort of become natural for me that I wanted to connect the circle, and I wanted to people from these regions to be able to connect here through an extra hotel. So then the more mountainous the regions, the better it becomes to use these extra stations that are just in the middle of nowhere stations that can be turned into a hotel and a warehouse, and also maintenance depots if there are very long rails. And then looking at this one, I think it's a little bit hard building these things, and I'm not sure if I'm enjoying myself that much. But going back and forth here, most of all, it's a question of having a lot of money. One can drag these lines and such, but at least in the end, it makes for a really fantastic view, at least, and then coming up here and such, and be connected to the rest. And I thought that this would just be this minuscule little tourist path, but actually there's a lot of traffic going up and down the mountain lines now. So I could have made for a much broader path there, and should also perhaps have made for a full extra 8 lane, but that would be good from Dion to Marseille, and then from Turin to Marseille. But it also cost a lot of money to develop these regions and such, so then things come on a little slow. And then from Turin, now we have this long line just going through Milan over here.
Our network has spread to all corners of the mountains. A great success. Congratulations! Our Alpine rail network is a gigantic success. Our clients are extremely satisfied and have asked me to express their thanks to you. Oh, and by the way, I have to commend your conscientiousness. Not only did you meet our mandatory goals with outstanding thoroughness, you also went out of your way to meet every special wish our client had. Most impressive.
So then we made it with a fantastic score, and only 2.7 years, and then we've been focusing a lot on making money on this really hard map, and that really paid off. So let's see how we did this. Made all these mission objectives that weren't that hard. Established a connection from Zermatt to Turin. We built that over the mountains, and Zermatt to Saint-Maurice. It's also kind of easy. And then, but the hard part here, as I mentioned, was this rail here, the Vienna, Marseille line. There is always this with the long lines. I think that it is hard to really get a hold of everything that is happening. So she had to delete all these stops along the way, and I'm not sure why they can go to Venice. But if I were to say add Trieste like this, then one can see now that the connection here to Marseille is now going to Trieste. While if I didn't have it there, it would go directly, even though it would go to Venice. So at least one has to be absolutely fantastically super careful about looking here. And I did that wrong again. I forgot it. I had that super score, and then I could have had a fantastic, even better score. But then I spent an enormously long time making that last mission objective and transporting these passengers and such. And I also built upon this extra nice solution here, going from Vienna, Salzburg. Couldn't complete a circle, so I just built these long lines that sort of goes a little bit parallel to this circle, the Salzburg, Trieste circle, and then from Vienna, Linz, Salzburg, Munich, Ulm, this line here, and then to crisscross that line extra with these smaller connections there that often just go to these hotels down there and such, but then to make for easier connection, can just have a very few trains on them. But then this solution was so perfect that the passengers started to take the train from Vienna, Salzburg, Ulm, and then rather on to here. And then I had no passengers coming in, and I had to load and go back and forth and such. It was a little bit annoying, but in the end I figured it out, and then just make sure, this is my advice, to make sure that they are absolutely direct, these trains. And we can have a look at the flow of goods for this level. You can see that, say with the milk, now we have some more milk, 2 milk resources at least. One can go city by city and have a look at these resources like this and see where they sort of are getting their milk. But when there is only 2 resources on the map, it might also be just as easy to go here and have a look like this and see. I'll never have a look at the. Oh wow! Now we're really making good money. Now they're really coming in. All cities connected, and now they're having 4 lanes. Fantastic. And really exponentially growing very well. Flattening out a little bit as of late, but still more and more growing. But then have a look at the flow of milk, for example. Milk should be coming on really nicely like this. No problems there. But then still now this problem has just becoming more and more, and we now have actually a 99 and more are coming in. So we are not having our milk delivered. With salt, for example, there is often a little difficult putting up these warehouses, and they mustn't interflict. Say with salt, salt is all good. One can put warehouses for salt all over because there is just one business, and then no matter where to put up the warehouses, they will just make for the same route or a little bit shorter. So that's no problem. With cement, on the other hand, there will be two cements. So then one must be certain that cement is now, this southern cement is distributed in the southern regions, while the northern cement, we can see here now that the southern cement is going all the way to Ulm, and then the northern cement is also going to Ulm, but not cross Ulm, because there is this split here and a warehouse, and this warehouse does not pick up cement, it only picks up salt and milk, as it should. One thing that I wanted to point out when looking at the flow of goods and such, when one brings up this flow of goods chart, one can see all the warehouses that are in the cities. But it might come as a little surprise that there is also a warehouse down here in Rux, in this hotel warehouse station cross thing. And then to be absolutely certain that one notices this, I often don't put the warehouses in the rural stations just because of this, because even though it's sort of better to have them in the rural stations, the worst thing that can happen in Railway Empire is that you forget something and that it becomes so confusing that in the end you cannot understand what you've been doing yourself. See, with sugar and such, it's just be kept, there's a lot of sugar going on, it can just be kept more or less local, brought into a warehouse here, but then to just have that very simple. And same with wheat, for example, always keep that local, not any particular reason to have long deliveries here. This wheat is now not distributed onto this line because that would make for a mess. Of course, warehouses would just bring in the resources to the main line, but no redistribution from there. Unlike, say, with vegetables, for example, that are brought on through different warehouses from one system to another, at least some places, like here. Now being brought into Dijon, and then further on from the Dijon Zurich circle down here to the line that connects Lyon and Marseille. But not into this warehouse. We could have brought one here as well, but then this region is supplied by this vegetable resource. Well, I guess that pretty much sums it all up. One can feel free to like and subscribe, leave some comments, and then I'll hope to see you next time, and goodbye.